Welcome to the Heart Attack Thriver podcast. My name is Brian Simpson, and I'll be your host. On this week's episode, I'm in conversation with Darren Gingras from Toronto. Darren is somebody I found recently on social media. He goes by the Common Sense Divorce on Instagram. I wish I had have known about you when I got divorced. It would have been really helpful, I'm sure. I love your content, Darren. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest today. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are, and what you do?
Well, thanks for having me this morning, Brian. My name is Darren. I am based here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And sort of the irony of being found online for things like kindness is, as you mentioned, I'm actually the executive director of a family law firm here in Toronto. We deal with people that are going through divorces. And the irony of what it is that we talk about on our page is we actually talk about relationships, and we talk about connecting with people, and we talk about heartbreak, and we talk about building our relationships. We actually don't talk about divorce. And probably the reason that those two go together, in our minds at least, is because we are people that really take greatly to the importance of what's called dispute resolution. We are really interested in helping people deal with life, the realities, the real realities of life, getting through them, resolving disputes, and resolving the real family pain that's often not about legalities when people are going through such things, but it's about personhood and who we are as beings, and really trying to figure out better ways to help people go through these kind of major life transitions. So I think a lot of the things that we talk about is really a reflection of what it is that we've learned as we've been working with people at really, really hard times. So yes, I'm online. My name's Darren, but I'm online as the Common Sense Divorce. And we talk about how people stay together, and we talk about how people heal their relationships and how people grow as individuals in relationships. So that's about me.
Yeah, it's incredible. I really, really love your work. I came across you. There was a video you've done. You've done several on kindness. And as I'd mentioned to you when we first got on, is that, I called myself the kindness coach for a while and kind of shifted to what I do now with the heart attack thriver, and supporting and helping people that have had heart attacks deal with the fear, the anxiety, the grief. When you have a heart attack or near death experience, I really feel that it's very similar to grief you experience. I was grieving the loss of old Brian when I had my heart attack, and grateful that new Brian has emerged, and it's emerged because I've chosen to be different, and I've done so much personal work, and it's really important. And it's just something that the world needs a lot of. And I kind of a few quotes. It's about how human we want to be, as you've said. I'm quoting you, and it's really true. And I think the negative self-talk that I experienced before my heart attack, the guilt, the shame I carried. I was molested when I was a little boy. I never dealt with, never shared with anybody. And I carried that with me, and that heaviness, I really believe, no doctor's going to be able to confirm this, but that's why I had my heart attack. I think the stress and all that goes along with that trauma really has an impact on not just our mental health and well-being, but our physical well-being as well. And I love your thoughts on kindness, and some of the posts you've done are just incredible because, again, time right now in this moment in the world, we need kindness more than ever.
My journey with things like kindness has been a lifelong journey. I started my professional career, 40 years ago, I guess, working in relief and development in some of the most difficult parts of the world. And I think if I was to look back now, the idealistic young man was going across the ocean to save the world, to, do something of importance, an eternal meaning. Of course, what you end up learning, or anybody that genuinely wants to get into that kind of work, is you learn more about things like kindness, and you learn more from people that are in crisis situation. But the true kindness is when it's extended back, when you're seeing people in places not just of physical poverty but of emotional poverty are playing out kindness. And I remember being touched and transformed, not by anything that I took over to these parts of the world, and now I can see the arrogance in those statements. What I learned and transformed me at those times set a foundation for me that, as I got older, I don't know that I could say that it was always front and foremost in my thought processes or even in my character. And I think that things like kindness as core, it's easy to mistake niceness for kindness. And they're two different things. Niceness is probably more about us all playing to our insecurities and trying to maneuver a room into responding to us, whereas kindness, it comes from a very different place. And the older I get, I start to see the little differences between the two, particularly as I look at the way that they play out in my life. And very similar to you, I had a crisis this past summer. We were away on vacation and my body decided to explode. And I ended up as well in the hospital on a death experience for, a month and a half I was out in a foreign city. And one of the things that amazed me is I was left in this place by myself. My spouse had to leave and go back home. So I was left in a strange place all by myself, knowing nobody. I was near death. I was physically cut open and healing. And I remember being touched at such a profoundly deep level by the kindness of strangers.
Mm.
So ironically, the person that traveled as a young man to the other side of the world because they thought they were so kind now was seeing the simplicity of kindness as an old man and the recipient of kindness. And, the reality is I was in a hospital. I'd been taken in my pajamas in a city that I don't live in. I didn't have any clothes. I didn't have any socks. I didn't have any underwear. And I remember a man that I did not know going out and going to Walmart and buying me some pajamas and slippers just to, get me through. And somebody else showing up with a journal and some books. And I remember nurses that were nice enough, but were kind. And they would come in the middle of the night and just hold my hand when I was profoundly afraid and as a man not wanting to show it. And they would come and hold my hand. They would know my name. And I know that sounds like a silly thing, but it was like they knew my name. They didn't have to read my name. They knew my name. They knew my spouse's name. They knew my children's name. They would talk to me about it and they would get vulnerable with me. And I remember noticing the healing power of kindness, particularly the kindness of strangers, and realizing that this is a big deal. This is not something that wouldn't it be nice if there was more of this in the world. This is a big deal, the kindness of neighbors and the kindness of strangers. And, in that experience, which was only a few months ago, realizing somatically, because I, like you, was in the hospital, because I now realize holding on to fears and holding on to all of the things that we develop as in our younger selves finally had reached a place in my life saying, no more, no more. You need to pull out some courage and you need to pull out some kindness and compassion for yourself and address this or you're going to die. And in fairness, I don't know that I always knew how to be kind to myself. And therefore, the kindness of these strangers was almost teaching me something that I needed to learn in these crisis moments. And it's like, okay, I can feel this kindness. What does this feel like? I feel this in my body. It feels like safety. It feels like being heard. It feels like it felt like my mother was rubbing my back at scary moments when a stranger was just doing kindness to me. And I remember saying, I need to remember what this feels like in my body, because of course, as we feel it in our body, it becomes the thoughts that we live, right? And walking out of that situation again, and foremost realizing that kindness, not niceness, kindness is a big, big deal, particularly in a world that is driven at every angle by chaos. We feel the chaos. Kindness actually causes individuals to stand out by contrast right now. And I think that's where, for instance, a viral video or a video's gone viral on social media, because we all inherently feel it, feeling chaos, that we notice kindness, or we notice when somebody speaks to kindness, because we all sense at a deep level it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a powerful share. Thank you. And I couldn't agree with you more. Is that I really feel like some of the things like kindness is humility in action, to quote you. I literally have posted notes here that have some of the quotes that you did. I just was like, "Wow, I got to make sure that I bring that up. It's a moment of patience and restraint or gentleness. And again, directing it back at ourselves. I keep coming back to the importance of being kind with ourselves first. Because if you can't be kind to yourself, can you authentically be kind to somebody else? Right. And it's just it's a really interesting dialogue that I've been going through since I came across you. I've been writing and journaling about it and just really doing a deep dive because I, it makes me sad that I was so hard on myself. That I did, but I didn't have the tools, and that's the thing. I think that's one of the things I've learned on my journey. My heart attack 10 years ago now was such a monumental gift for me because it really had me taking stock of who I was as a man, as a father, as a brother, as a son. And I have so much work to do. So much work to do. I'm married now to somebody who is the most kind, loving human I've ever met. And I'm so blessed that Adrian's in my life. And she reminds me a lot. She's like, you need to be nicer with your mom. She's not going to be around much. My mom, she frustrates me. It challenges me. It's like the virtual rewind every time we get on the phone. And I'm just blessed to have somebody who really shines a huge spotlight on my growth. She doesn't say you need to do this. She just shines a light on it in her own beautiful way that really, has me reflecting on, yeah, I do need to be kinder to my mom and I need to practice, that more.
What's interesting about it is kindness in my own life. And without a doubt, this is, of course, a reflection of entering in sort of that latest stage of my life. And I've made a decision. I turned 60 this summer. 60 is wonderful, by the way. 60 is wonderful. You fit in your skin in a way that you just never did the rest of your life. It's liberating, or it can be, I guess. But at 60 years old, I'm kind of realizing that the way I am sort of seeing my life right now is the way that I did when I was 20. Who am I going to be when I grow up? And I'm realizing right now at the stage of my life, I'm making a decision of who I am going to be at essence so that when I am 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, when maybe my mental capacities or my ability to hold a mask up in front of the world fails me and I'm no longer allowed to be the person I pretend or present to be, who will I be at core when all of other capacities? Will I be a cranky old man? Will I be a miserable old man? Will I be a dirty old man? Will I be a kind old man? And the decisions that I'm making right now are feeling very much like I did at 20. I'm deciding right now, I'm taking a look to see who I will be. And there's a funny element, of course, when you have those crisis moments where you've faced your mortality, you kind of start wondering and talking about essence. And you're realizing that part of what it is that you are being forced to confront is a little bit about your legacy. Who are you about at core? And all of that went to say that, the journey with kindness, would I say that I've been a kind person? Yeah. I mean, it's not something that's never been a part of my life at key moments. I would say that until recently, it's not necessarily been something that it's like, no, this needs to be a core element of who I am as a person. Now, that doesn't mean I'm always a nice person. That doesn't always mean that I am a wonderful person. And there certainly are plenty of moments where I'm not kind. But it becomes something now that I've decided that I want to be a core of my essence. And just like you, I realize that it's like, I don't know that I always know how to be kind to myself. And the thing that causes me to stop that loop of conversation is realizing that my goal as a man is not to perform, but to be. And as I be, I attract, I magnetize, find opportunities, and opportunities find me for sort of the piece of the recipe that you are. Part of the goal in just simply learning to be kind to myself is to simply be kind so that I can be kind, so that I can attract kind, so that it actually becomes a discipline that is on par with taking care of your body or taking care of your physical health, your wellness, the things that you eat or whatever else. Kindness becomes a thing like working out in the morning. It's like, what do I need to do? I know that, for instance, weekly I go to a meditative group, and not every week I feel like going, but I also know that going and spending that time with other people in a room meditating together and doing mindfulness together re-anchors me back to a place where I can now focus on priorities that I want to incorporate in my life. So you start building practices in, not because they need to become something, but building the practices in is a part of keeping yourself regulated so that kindness to myself and therefore kindness to others has a place to sit.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it gets lost in a whole loop of distractions.
Yeah, I love everything you said. What I don't know why it's coming up, but there was a basketball player years ago that was being interviewed after a game, and he was like, "We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice." I don't know. That just came to me because it is a practice.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah,
practice,
that's fair. Yeah, that's
and
fair.
I like I said, it's a journey that I've never really had any awareness to. My heart attack just sort of like put a huge light on my life. And, again, meditation has become a big part of who I am. I struggled to meditate. My former wife and I went to a couple of meditation retreats and stuff. And I would come out of there more agitated and almost angry at myself. Like, I can't shut my mind off. I can't slow the thoughts down. And these people look like they're the Buddha, and I'm sitting here judging myself, going like, I can't shut my mind off. What the fuck is wrong with me? Right? Not knowing that that was the work.
Yeah.
Had so many beautiful teachers come into my life, and when I say teachers, these are people that I've just met, that come across me, come across like you and I have come across each other, and there's just been so many gifts around and about learning what meditation really is. It doesn't have to be something that you label. It's a practice, yes, but it's something you do for yourself to help you project out into the world different light.
Well, and I think what's really important to be said, particularly if we're speaking to men, I come from the school where things like meditation and breath work and mindfulness was right out there in the world of the woohoo. And it was not anything, it's not that it maybe wouldn't have attracted me per se. I just couldn't figure out what they were talking about. It did not resonate with me in any language. And frankly, sometimes the language of mindfulness and meditation and breath work and all of those kind of things still sort of makes me a little bit unnerved because I couldn't relate what they were talking to what I was needing. Now I realize when I use Darren language that all I'm doing is figuring out how to be in a moment long enough to still my mind and actually think straight. And the only way that I can maybe articulate it, if you were to see across my room right now, I collect clocks. I love clocks. And I've got a wall over here where I've got 20, 30, 40 different clocks that are ticking and cuckooing and whatever else. And people will come to visit here and they'll say, like, don't they drive you crazy? The ticking? And I was saying to them, no, I find them incredibly soothing. And the reason I think I find them soothing is because when I sit and listen and perhaps shut my eyes just for a moment, I hear the clocks ticking and they bring me back to now. They bring me back. They pull me out of the looping thought processes that are always forever going on. They pull me out of the mind games. They pull me out of insecurities for a moment. And they just bring me to this room and I can hear the clock ticking and I can hear this moment and I can notice. And that's where I learn in the present to soothe myself down and get on top of it. And that's what mindfulness and meditation and breath work, they are really simplistic tools that the human body is designed to respond to. They're just like a ticking clock. They know how to bring us back to a place. It's not woo-hoo. We're not tapping into the centers of the universe and energies that delve from the very cores of the planets of Neptune or whatever else. It really is just an ability to get into a moment long enough to say, hold on, what am I feeling? What would I like to feel differently? And what are my moments paused a little, my mind's paused just for a moment. What are big deals to me? And all of those things, the meditation, the mindfulness, is really about bringing you to a word that I always loved, but we're not necessarily good at practicing: centered. It's like, I'm centered. I'm just kind of here right now. I'm grounded. And I'm not always centered. I'm not always grounded, but I now know where it is, whereas before I didn't. And in those moments of centeredness, I am starting to physically recognize what that is like. It's like, oh, this is what centeredness feels like. And from centeredness, you can now start to delve other priorities in your life. So all those woohoo things, they finally just somehow made sense to me. And it's not like I'm chasing gurus or flying to India to do a retreat to figure this or that out. This is just something that very simply came to me one day when I started to realize, ah, this is what they're talking about. They just put it in Darren language.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's great awareness because again, like you, I've been in a similar journey. I didn't really seek it out, but it kind of found me. I've done plant medicine. I've been very fortunate to have mentors that have brought me into that fold, and it's something that I would have never done. Never smoked weed or anything like that. Never really, you know, did anything like that. And, want to talk about woo woo. Well, start talking about drinking a medicine from the jungles of Peru and having a trippy, hallucinogenic experience that just, boom, just like turns on every single sense in your body. And it literally started to happen to me on my motorcycle trip after I left my marriage, and I had a vision. I'm going to Costa Rica. And people think, "What's your plan?" I'm like, "My plan is no plan." And I just started meeting all these people, and I call them the beautiful dominoes that started to fall for me in my life that just fell in a path that led me to where plant medicine was something I never even heard of. I had a woman at a coffee shop say, "Oh, you need to do ayahuasca." And I was like, "I what?" I had no awareness of what it is, and I had so many opportunities on that trip to do it, but I didn't because I didn't feel I was ready. I didn't feel I had the tools, and I didn't know that at the time. I look back now on reflection that I just wasn't ready because I hadn't done the work that I needed to do to be fully ready so that I could embrace what happened to me when I was a little boy that I never dealt with, that I just tucked away into that corner that kept me with an edge, that made me not happy, that made me question life, that made me just really look really hard at who am I at the core. And when I had that experience, it was the most beautiful experience. It was hard. I relived everything. And I came out of it and I just had this clarity. And that morning after my first ceremony, the shaman took me aside. He said, like, I've been doing this a long time. And I've never met anybody who's never done it before, who came out of it with such clarity. We were given an opportunity. Does anybody want to talk? I'm like, I want to talk. I just had to share. And he said, I'm just so proud of you that you did the work to be able to get to this place. And I'm really proud of myself for that. But it's changed the whole trajectory of my life because it just gave me answers that I had been seeking that I didn't even know I was seeking. So yeah.
I mean, without a doubt, I think particularly for men, there is, it's interesting. I'm very, very interested in the journey of men lately. Now, the journey of women in my life has always been easier for me to relate to. And what I mean by that is, I would definitely be on the touchy-feely side. This is a guy that's in touch with his emotions. This is a guy. So relating to what sometimes gets called feminine energies, and I think that's inappropriate to genderize them, but the more nurturing energies within our psyche, I think I've always been quite in tuned with tapping into maybe some of the more masculine energies, which would play out in things like boundaries and playing out in things like assertion of yourself, but within a responsible manner of leadership. Were not necessarily things that I played out. And I think for most men, this is not necessarily unusual. Maybe the emotional element is unusual for a lot of men, but I think a lot of men go through stages in their lives where they are being called upon to a season of the soul to individuate against what it is that we grew up in, or individuate against the stories that shaped us, whether or not they were big T traumas or whether or not they were things that just sort of cemented the way we will forever respond, and being those little T sort of shaping wounds. Men are called, or most men Or maybe a fair statement is some men seem to get the gift of being able to have a season in the soul. And I've had them. I'm going to say I've had them 2 or 3, maybe 4 times in my life. They were big. They were life changers. This last one, getting sick can certainly be a big one for many people, was a big one, probably the biggest of my life, and really required me to go deep. Now, I'm not afraid of people in psychedelics, etc., but this was a journey that was without.
Mhm.
And, and I've done such things, but this was a journey without. This was a journey of sitting in front of the fire at the end of on the porch, or sitting at the end of the dock looking into the sun for, it was more than weeks, it was months. And for me, that season of the soul really caused me, I don't know that I could say that it turned me into a better man or a more moral man, or that I don't muck things up. I would just say it turned me into a man that's a little bit more aware of when, why, how I was, am, and still continue to do. In that one, the season of the soul is when you get a glimpse of yourself. You sort of see behind the curtain of your own self. And in that one, you decide, okay, this is there. And if I really sit with this, I'm going to figure out why it's there. And people around me, people I love, people I care, I'm either hurting them, wounding them, or nudging them along without even realizing it, because I'm carrying some baggage that is playing off their baggage, and it may not necessarily be working well for themselves. For everybody. Part of the kindness thing then is realizing that there are people in my life that I love, that, outside of kindness to strangers, there were people in my life that, because of my story, my traumas, my journey that I've had to walk through or chose not to walk through, what I took on, what I embraced, what I avoided, that I'm not always kind to. And that doesn't mean I'm not nice to. That doesn't mean that I'm not, the kindness can, can sometimes mean stop enabling. Do you know what I mean? That kindness became something that was not about good deeds. Kindness in my life is becoming something about an inner compass that is tied to measures of personal integrity, and tied to measures of personal character, and tied to measures of personal responsibility, not because I want to go out and do something for everybody else, but I want to be something that imparts at any moment, certainly to strangers, little moments of something that could be healing. And particularly for the people that are intimately involved in my life, imparting things that will either truly bring healing and resolution, not only to them, but to us as a relationship, and making sure that I am a part of a healing journey, and I'm not somebody that's passing on generational trauma, or I'm not somebody that is making their world worse. And my goal is not to make their world better, but my goal is to be kind and anchored in kindness as part of who I am, so that I am building myself, and in turn building other people in a way that is productive and not adding to what has kept us all from kindness.
Yeah, I love there's so much there. I feel you and I could sit here and talk about this for a long time. Men's work is something that's really important to me too. I've done a lot of men's work. I've been really fortunate. There's a group I follow and I'm part of. It's called Sacred Sons. They're on Instagram. Yeah, it's work that needs to be done. There's so much toxic masculinity, and I don't like those all these terms that people throw out. There's just there's just guys that are operating below the line. We need to elevate them, help elevate them because they need help. We all need help. I needed
Yeah.
help. I've had coaches that have, like, right to my face go like, "You gotta fucking change. Like, this is
Yeah.
you. This is on you. This is not anybody else's responsibility but yours, and you need to own it. You need to man up." And I again, I do that in kind of, quotes, but it's like it's just being a leader, being responsible for your actions, being responsible for your words, and it comes back to kindness. It comes back to just being kind and being patient and practicing restraint and things that I struggle with. I'm a very in the moment kind of person. And I got to slow down on that because it's not serving me to be so in the moment all the time. It's I can be more thoughtful. I need to be more thoughtful when it comes to stuff like this because it's work that's important to me because like you, I'm gonna be 59 in April. So I'm
Oh,
not
you're a
far behind.
baby.
Yeah, you're doing 60 really well. You look uh amazing. And I feel really, really honored and grateful for how my body's responding and how I'm aging. And again, there's we could talk here for like for hours, but this has been a really incredible conversation. I am so glad I reached out to you. When I get these nudges, I call them from the universe, I listen, and I was so compelled to reach out to you, and I'm so glad you applied. I'm so glad you said yes to this conversation because this is powerful. To anybody out there that's listening to this, Darren is somebody you need to follow. Because you're the way I view you and the way you're impacting the world is it's needed, first of all. And we need more Darrens in the world because just I love how you communicate, how thoughtful you are with your words. It's powerful. It's powerful. You have a powerful message. You have medicine on your heart. We all have medicine on our heart. And I really feel that medicine coming from your heart. So thank you.
Well, and thank you. And I say that not with false humility. I say that because I'm going to speak to somebody that's doing his own work. Thank you for noticing. And thank you for telling me what you sense, because it's not something that I'm needing affirmation on, but it is really affirming when people recognize it. And for that alone, it's like, thank you, because that is something that I work on in myself. And it's something that I've decided is a priority in my life, and it's a priority that I want to grow. So having moments like this one to sort of talk about this and talk about the journey is greatly appreciated. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, this has exceeded my expectations. I knew it was gonna be awesome, but this has just been next level for me. So thank you for your time. Let's keep in touch. I'm gonna be coming to Toronto in May. It would be great to meet in person if we can make that happen. So I'll definitely keep in touch. Be great to break bread and just, meet you in the flesh because I feel like I've really met a really special human, somebody who's gonna be important in my life. I don't know why I feel that about you, but I just do.
You got to come up and sit on our porch. That's where our sacred space is. And people come and sit on our porch, and we sit around the fire and talk about, we laugh, we cry, we talk about what matters, and we talk about what doesn't matter. So you're invited to the porch.
Well, I definitely will say yes to that, and, let's keep in touch, okay?
Thanks much. You have a great day.
You too, and bye for now.
Bye bye.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Darren as much as I enjoyed it. I knew it was going to be an incredible conversation, and obviously, I had no idea what kind of direction we were going to go in. And I love the fact that he's interested by men's work. I'm excited to learn more when I meet him in person in June. I'm going to be back in Canada, and we're going to connect and spend some time on his porch. He now is doing something through his work where he is going to be interviewing people and having like-minded individuals come together, and he's asked me to be part of that. So I'm, looking forward to that. I'm totally honored, and he is just a really unique and beautiful human. And I don't know. I have this feeling this is going to be a relationship that's going to, be a long term one in a good way. I just feel we're just aligned in a lot of many ways. So, yeah, tune in for more on that in the future. I'll definitely keep you updated. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for finding me. If you haven't already hit subscribe, please hit subscribe now. It's how we grow. I'm now approaching 15,000 downloads, which is just got me energized and committed to bringing more guests on. And I've got a number of really amazing guests lined up. So if you know somebody you think this content would resonate with, please share it. I would really appreciate that. I really feel that this 6+ year project that I've been doing is really starting to gain traction and is going to start to pay dividends moving forward in terms of raising awareness to cardiovascular disease, but also talking about things that matter to the heart. And conversations about men's work is something that's really close to my heart. I've done a lot of personal work and I've done men's work with other men, and there's nothing more powerful than doing work with men that are like-minded, that are wanting to up-level themselves and wanting to show up and be a beacon of hope and a beacon of love. I will be back shortly with another episode. And as always, I appreciate you and I'm glad you're following along on this journey. Until next time, bye for now.